it makes total sense. That's why SVR is doing what SVR is doing. Now, if they were listening to Jola talk back and forth with okay, I have turned the key. Jason was absolutely convinced the car was going to go up in smoke. I'm right across the street from Wendy. I don't even know who this person is. Wendy Williams. Oh, wait a minute. I think I do know the Wendy Williams show. But anyway, people are lined up already for the Wendy Williams show. So anyway, I'm going to double tap here and go live. Okay, so today I will be going to the Russian embassy, maybe a couple of times. You have to ask yourself on the SVR report. So there's two SVR reports. One is the one on July the 7th, and that's going to be the one where they've been looking at this guy named Jola because he's a terrorist and he hires MS-13 murderers, right? That's why the Russians are monitoring Jola. They're not monitoring Jola because he steals cars in New York. They don't really care if Jola steals every car on the street. They don't care. They care if their diplomats get killed. They want to prevent the situation that happened in Turkey at the art museum with the guy shooting the guy in the back. That's why they monitor the guys with the guns in the back of the art gallery. So, and you know, if you just think about it for like 1 minute, it makes total sense. That's why SVR is doing what SVR is doing. Now, if they were listening to Jola talk back and forth with, let's say, somebody from, I'm not going to say Basilico Construction in Long Island, but let's say somebody in an SIU kind of safe house. The thing about the construction business is you control SEIU. You know, you're going to have somebody a man in Havana in every building in New York, especially, well, everywhere. Hospital. That's an infiltrator's dream. Plus you have the union organization. Now, I'm not picking on AFSCME here. I'm not picking on IBEW. I'm going to be able to show later in this that IBEW and all the other unions that use the NGP van software that were doing union organizing, they were rated just as well as Bernie. I mean, it wasn't just Bernie folks that got raided in the NGP van theft. I mean, there's a lot of people think that van itself was raided by NGP, but I'm not going to go there because I don't want to cast aspersions on Nate Perlman. But there is this period of time, this 4-hour period of time during backups where they drop the permissions on all the files for the backups to occur on NGP van. And if you knew that exploit, you could go in. If I was SEIU, I could go in and see what all your canvassers did, all your door knockers did yesterday, bringing out the union vote. And you're mainly interested in people who voted Democratic in the past, because not only are those people going to give you their vote, they're going to probably give you money. State workers are especially good because they are already retired. They're on usually pretty good pensions, so they feel like, I got to give back. Got to give back. So the NGP van is going to come into this thing. What's nice is when you spend about 3 days researching something and doing interviews, and then you go to Dr. Jerome Corsi's house, and he spent the last 3 days doing NGP van. So even though we're researching the same things, we're doing different things. I'm interviewing people, and Jason is interviewing people regarding the NGP van software to find out these technical details, to find out the reality of what really happened on the street. We're not stopping at the Utretsky school play. We're going beyond the Utretsky school play. We're going to the people who actually work in the streets, actually knocking on the doors. And you may call that retail journalism or barnstorming journalism, whatever you call it, shotgun journalism, or just journalism maybe. I mean, that's what you have to do. You can't just sit back and go, oh, NGP van, and in no way. I mean, Dr. Corsi's research was amazing, because he nailed every fact. You could tell he's got an intelligence background. But it was just a perfect compliment. It's kind of reminded me of going back when 007 goes back to M's house. Or the M's office, and M's like, yeah, well, here's what we're really going to do, because I've done 9,000 of these things. But thank you. I'll take that as input. So Pasilico, the reason why I mentioned Pasilico so much is he's going to be the one getting these people, these ISI, Pakistani ISI people, visas in the United States. And I mentioned New York Film Academy yesterday. And I will produce, I believe, by the end of the day, at least one Pakistani ISI for DHS that did get a scholarship in the United States from New York Film School after being on the terrorism watch list, the red list for Interpol. So I will produce that. And Jason Goodman mentioned last night that, so this is the cover, you come in under some kind of social justice cover, and that's how they're infiltrating. That's how the Awan brothers are connected to Seth Rich. Seth Rich is just one of the murders, SEIU murders, of hundreds. So that's why I say Seth Rich is an important case, because there's a huge number of researchers out there working on that. And Seth Rich will unlock the SEIU chain of command and how murders were carried out. But I don't want to just solve Seth Rich's murder, and I hope I've made that kind of clear. Bob Kramer, again, I go to metadata. Bob Kramer goes to the White House 300 times. Podesta goes to the White House about 300 times. I think that's over like a 4-year period. When you start thinking about it, that's going to the White House like every 4 days. There's a lot more dead bodies here than there's a lot more dead bodies here than just Seth Rich, and which means in terms of investigation, a lot more footprints, which is a good thing. So, but we'll continue to follow the Seth Rich case. But again, so we talked about SVR reports. SVR it's an intelligence service for Russia, for their foreign service, sort of like our CIA. They don't do nearly the covert action because they don't have the budget for covert action. There's no black budget in Russia, believe me. They're trying to get enough money for tonight's borscht. So that's a really critical thing, is the SVR reports. Why would they go? If you're we said this yesterday, but if you're the Russian ambassador and you get the information that because you're monitoring Joe and into this SEIU, Persilico, I'm not saying Mike Persilico is ordering deaths, but he is getting visas for people who are killers who are being brought into the United States. And like I said, I'll produce that later today. So Persilico is bringing them in. They're getting jobs in Long Island and New York and so forth. And then operatives at SEIU, like the guy who was, waiting for me in the elevator and the other guy's waiting for me in the stairwell yesterday, they're the union organizers. They're the guys who's like, you see on the street and there's one guy watching. If you go to Long Island or Brooklyn especially, you see this phenomenon immediately. I could drive by 10 sites where one guy's watching, making sure it's a union job, going around checking everybody's tags, checking everybody's local. That's the guy. The way they do the extra, what is it called? Extra work, or every action. The way they do every action, because we're not just talking about union jobs. We're talking about night stuff, or in yesterday's case, day action. But you're gonna have the union guy there, and then you're gonna have the guy who's the Rocky, the union tough that, is being brought up through the UFC ranks, and his other job is, hey, snap this guy's neck. So that's how it works. That's the action here. And, I will just continue, like I've done with Eric Braverman, just pile on the evidence that that's exactly how it works. If you don't know who Amy Dacey is, she almost describes the full flight of the continuity between SEIU and MWW, as MWW is Anthony Weiner's ad firm, of how it's connected. The MWW I walked by on Fifth Avenue is the social justice front, for the crisis management. They're going to hire the Braverman actor troupe for whatever crisis they want to take advantage of, and then get their hedge funds all set up before it happens. And then the other end of the street end of it was where I was in Brooklyn yesterday. So you got to know when you're in the lion's den, and you can't spit on Superman's cape. I mean, Basilicos are, pretty heavy-duty family, construction family. I do think the Basilicos are going to end up where the construction jobs are going to be for the people coming in. And that's what really bugs me, is even in the old union days, they at least hired Americans for the construction jobs. Now, we got bringing in operatives with this transition to Hillary. We're bringing in operatives from overseas. That just doesn't make any sense. Now, I understand we're all deplorable and we all need to be eliminated and harvested, but at least show some American spirit, Basilico, for crying out loud. Now, you can Google Basilico in WikiLeaks, and he's talking about the Bradley Manning thing yesterday. He's talking about the Bradley Manning Stratfor leaks. Now, it's like Jason Goodman's got a connection to everything. One of his good friends is murdered in his backyard after a Stratfor leak, and we're going to develop that a little bit more. The other thing is working on the Mina Airport movie, which I think is going to be coming out in a couple of months. Tom Cruise. It's going to be called American Made, I think. His friend that did, I think, some of the helicopter stuff, aerial photography and stuff, is murdered. And this guy kind of designed, kind of a GoPro helmet system camera thing, and then boom. So it's not like these murders don't, Seth Rich was a year ago and then we're waiting for the next one. No, they're happening all the time. You just have to develop a sensitivity to it. So given that agenda and those talking points, where do I want to go today? I'm open to suggestions. One of the things, literally had to learn how to use Periscope yesterday. So I'm not a Periscope expert. It was a kind of like, life and death type situation. So one of the things that Jason did find is we can scrape the comments and watch this later on. So I guess it becomes a YouTube later on, which is kind of nice because, again, metadata, if we could scrape that later on and we can scrape your comments later on, that means I don't have to go through and constantly approve all the comments when I'm on the road, which is big. Because approving comments, the comment shadow banning is getting really nasty. And again, the more arcane and the more specific those comments are, the better. Two Jews and a blind dog, is funny, but it doesn't help the investigation at all. If I say New York Film Academy and you say, Imran Awan, got a scholarship there. That's very valuable, because then those are all leads. Because you don't go, it's like at military school, especially Special Forces military school. You don't go to Special Forces military school to learn how to do Special Forces murder operations and then not do murder operations when you get out. Okay, and I'm not saying New York Film School is that, but I am saying it is the cover to get people in here. And Schneiderman's a district, the Attorney General in New York. It's like, oh, we got to worry about the Trump Foundation and the $800 portrait of Trump or whatever the hell. Just these ridiculous deflections. The thing that needs to be the thing needs to be cracked, and it's got to be now. So anyway, I'm going to go up to the Russian embassy. I want a Russian consulate. I want to go up there with Jason. But again, why would the Russians? Now, there was an SVR report, Russian intelligence report, that Braverman went to that location that we're going to today on the 23rd. Gavin McFadden just so happens to have died the night of the 22nd with a really fast cancer. These fast cancers, the wife, you can't contact her, you can only contact her through email, so you never see a proof of life or her face. Same thing happens with, it just seems like these fast cancers, there's just, they're dead in 2 months. So that happens with Ratner, and it happens with with McFadden. The next morning, Braverman makes a run for the consulate. Now, what reason in the world would SVR have of publishing that, other than to say, we got a guy here, we don't know what to do, he's sitting here, he's saying he's the CEO of the Clinton Foundation. Jason all agree that the handoff had to be between May 25th and about now, May 31st. Now, if you remember correctly, the New York Times punches out an article, and I don't know the exact day, where Braverman gets married. Now, on last year about this time. Now, why? Well, you don't have to testify against your relatives, so you can't go after Neil Brown now. You can't even go after Braverman, because he can testify, and it could be a, hey, you're picking on gays thing, if he's called as a witness. So that's odd timing. I want to remind everybody and correlate that timing. It's going to be interesting to see the exact date on that, because if it's the 25th or 26th, that's going to be really interesting, because that's an attorney setting things up as cover. So the reason I want to do this first one is I haven't really thought through exactly all the stuff I want to do today. I definitely want to expose the New York Film Academy. We have 2 other New York Film Academies. What the hell is New York Film Academy doing in Florida? What the hell is the New York Film Academy doing in Los Angeles? I can understand Los Angeles because of Hollywood, but now are they accepting visas from foreign students there? That's just like a visa sieve. I mean, that's almost like a Ronco, those little Ronco machines, where just stamp out the visas as fast as possible. And the same thing for LA. So we're going to get to the bottom of it. Now, you've seen news where shards of this, and again, this looks like the classic McCabe breaking shit up. There's an EB-5 visa case that just broke, or maybe it's an H-1B case that just broke in Los Angeles. We had the guy get murdered in Florida. This is the Wysant, Bernie Wysant, the black guy, 37-year-old, rapidly rising. And now we've got, Pasilico here in New York with the visas. I will produce at the end of the day at least one person that Pasilico. I know, but anyway, I'll call you right back. So anyway, and that's why I say it was the 25th, and that coincides pretty well with the last date of the email. I mean, who would make the email on the thumb drive? Now you've got sedition and 30 years in prison, you're looking at Bradley Manning time, and you're going to wait 3 days to have it in your apartment and just leave it lay around for DHS to come in and take? No, you're going to want to have that in your hand as little time as possible. And if you correlate the chair throw, and MWW, by the way, Amy Dacey again, and Anthony Weiner, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and Mike Kempner, and all the crew, the ones who did the BlackBerry syncing with Anthony Weiner's laptop, BlackBerry and laptop. Gee, that might have been valuable information at MWW for crisis PR team. But anyway, the chair throw, they did the chair throw around the world story. I didn't do the chair throw around the world story. So they made a big deal about it. So in 2 days later, if you hadn't thrown the chair and you had this MWW making this big deal about it, you'd be like, hey, this shit is completely ass backwards. Everything that they are accusing us of doing, they did it to us. The same thing happened with the NGP van stuff, with them accusing Bernie people